This is the Concord Municipal Affordable Housing Trust. It's Tuesday, September 27, 2022. It is 10:03 a.m. And our first order of business will be a call to order by a roll call. Linda Escobedo.
Present.
Mike Lawson.
Present.
Rich Feely.
Present.
Pete LaFleur is not here, and Keith Bergman present. Okay, so we have 4 of our 5 members. Also have with us Concord Housing Development Corporation Chair Lee Smith, Regional Housing Services Director Liz Rust, and the town's Planning and Land Use Director Marcia Rasmussen. Welcome. And hello, Lois, as well, for being with us. First, the next order of business is approval of minutes. I sent out a set from our meeting on September 22nd. I made a correction suggested by Linda that clarified what we were discussing Christopher Heights when we shifted from one subject to another. Is there any further amendments or suggested edits to the minutes? And if not, is there a motion to approve as amended?
So moved.
Motion by Rich. I saw a second by hand raised from Mike. All right, so motion by Rich, second by Mike. Is there discussion? All right, so let's do a roll call vote on approval of the minutes as amended. Linda?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
Rich?
Aye.
And Keith, aye. So those are approved 4-0. Thanks very much. There are 2 items of business. Usually we have a crowded agenda. We've got 2 items on today's agenda for a discussion. One is update on Christopher Heights Junction Village, and the second one is home rule petitions for the real estate transfer fee. Both of these topics were identified at our last meeting on the 22nd as being time sensitive, and we wanted to meet and discuss both right away. I think since we have Lee here from the CHDC, maybe we'll just start a discussion of Christopher Heights with if you or Liz perhaps might want to just give us an update for the record now. So, and thanks very much for being here and all the work that you've been doing on this project for longer than I can remember. So.
Thank you for that. So yeah, Lee Smith, Chair, Concord Housing Development Corporation. The update is that Walter, the developer from Grantham Group, myself and Liz appeared before the select board on September 19th, seeking support for the request from your trust for an additional $1 million as requested by the State Department of Housing and Community Development. You'll recall that as the result of the changes in the economy stemming from COVID-19 pandemic, very many other projects similar to Walter's in the affordable housing realm have faced significant budget shortfalls as a result of significant cost increases. So DHCD paused or rescinded all prior approvals of funding applications and required 34 developers around the state to reapply this fall and be able to demonstrate a significant economic contribution, additional contribution from each of their host communities, including Concord. So that was the reasoning behind the request for an additional $1 million, and that was slated to be used in whole or in part towards either an on-site septic system or a connection to town sewer. That meeting, I'll just describe myself as not being, seemingly a majority of the select board members were not receptive to the request. I'll describe it that way. I'll let Linda speak for herself when she wants to. But in conversations after that meeting with the developer, he was really disappointed with the way, you know, the kind of reaction he was getting, and concluded himself that the select board does not support his project for the 83 units of assisted living, 100% affordable units. And he is a Concord resident, and he does not want to put forth a development project that is not wanted by the town. These are his words. I spoke with him a few times after that, asked him to maybe think about it, reconsider, etc. But this morning I received a draft of a termination agreement from him addressed to CHDC that would terminate the development agreement and the transaction in general. So that is where we stand. I'll just add, I don't see any path forward at this point.
Thank you, Lee, for that update. Other comments, Linda? Is there any?
I would just say that on Thursday at 5 o'clock there, I believe it was Thursday at 5 o'clock, there was a meeting of the Junction Village Open Space Task Force. And both Marcia and Liz were there, and the meeting was promptly redirected to shut down their committee project, and to perhaps capture all the work that they had done in a final report to the select board, and then ask the select board to be dissolved. So that happened as quickly as Thursday afternoon.
Is the, okay. I do want to find out if they're, no, I'm sorry. There's a question, the vote that the select board took on the 19th was to direct a question to town council. And I'm wondering if it's known whether town council has provided a response.
I have no update on that.
Yeah, because it seems to me, and the question was what, you know, not only did the select board not vote to approve funding, additional funding for the project as we'd asked them to, but they took no vote on the funding, and they instead directed by a 3-to-1 vote with Linda in opposition, voted to get an opinion from town council about the enforceability of the various memoranda of agreement or development agreements between the developer and the town. So I think that I took that as the selectmen were marking their turf of where they felt that they could take a position. And I think that it would be helpful to have that information for the benefit of the CHDC before you know, the CHDC itself takes actions which the select board may not view as consistent with what the select board see how it works. Rich.
Yeah, I guess I wasn't at that meeting, but it sounds like the whole thing did not focus on either the desirability of Junction Village or the cost to the town if Junction Village isn't built, i.e. 40B, not getting in the fossil fuel free pilot program, et cetera. And the fact that we don't get 83 units for the largest and fastest growing segment of our population.
Rich,
So,
can I just
sorry, go ahead.
comment on that since you weren't there? That is correct. The chair characteristically excused himself from this topic because he's in a butter, and the chair pro temp that was named immediately wanted to move into questioning as opposed, and I tried to interrupt that and get to back up and give an overview and update so that everybody, was aware of where we were, but that was shut down right from the get-go.
Well, I guess I have a real process problem with this. I mean, whether Grantham are good guys or bad guys, we know they're capable of building these things. And the feedback I had when my board members talked to another select board member, now Linda, and they said, oh, well, we don't know about his numbers. Well, my reaction is DHCD has a lot more at stake and a lot more competition here. And they do have expertise that the town doesn't have internally. If Walter would hang in there, could we come back and say, look, vote this money provisional on approval by DHCD, and we know, at least Liz, correct me if I'm wrong, will be reviewing every applicant's financials and trying to decide if they're realistic. I mean, I don't think the town's in the position to determine one way or the other whether they are. But I'm just, incredibly reluctant to give up on this thing when it seems that it was more a personality conflict than it was a policy matter or a policy-based decision.
I'll just comment on just one part of what you asked, Rich. DHCD, and we mentioned this at the meeting with the select board, absolutely reviews the numbers in great detail, has much more current benchmarks to use with other projects, and employs their own architects and estimators to verify the numbers, so they don't take anything that is given to them without their own due diligence. They're putting in a lot of money, so they do way more than Concord would ever be expected to do.
Right, and it's competitive. They're not going to give money to the ones that they think are fluffed up. I believe that's the case. They probably don't have enough money to go around for all of them anyway. So
that's correct.
Lee, I hear you. I understand why Walter wants out, but I'm short of going down and picketing City Hall, I'm not quite sure what to do.
Thanks, Rich. Lee?
I'm with you. I don't know what to do either. I think he's really done. He was really put off by that meeting. I think it's important to just note for the record, there was a suggestion by one of the select board members that the $1 million that we're requesting could come from a source of funds that could otherwise be used for something else in town. And I think he used the middle school as an example. That's not the case. These funds, as you all well know, has already been appropriated. It is already within the funds available to your trust, and there was no request for any additional appropriation or fundraising from the town. Certainly no request for anything that would impact.
Yeah, the other thing the town seems to have overlooked is that, we gave them a tax break. Well, they're not going to get us $1 worth of tax revenue if it isn't built. So, I just sense that this is partially personality conflict and partially a bunch of people that never wanted the project to begin with. And that's why I'm wondering whether some sort of, public opposition is necessary. I mean, can we demand that this be put back on the agenda and the project discussed in the way we're discussing it here? I mean, if Lee and Liz say there's no way of keeping Grantham going, but Grantham presumably has spent several $100,000 on this. They're not walking away with no cost to them. So I'm wondering if they could be persuaded to hang in. And if they did, my thought would be we turn out the environmental folks, we get Alice there, we get somebody from Elder Affairs there and say, this is an important thing to the town. And finally, on the middle school, hey, they just proved the point here. Their cost estimates went up 15% in 1 year. That's why they got a problem. And that's why Grantham needs more money. So I guess my question is there any hope if we were to be more activist, Lee and Liz, or is this a dead parrot, to quote Monty Python?
My personal view is I believe Walter when he says he's done. That being said, if by some miracle the select board had a change of heart, certainly a majority, if not unanimous, and effectively asked him to come back and proceed, maybe he would reconsider, but sitting here today, I don't expect that to happen.
Lee,
Michael.
the draft that you said you had, Lee, has not been made public yet, has it?
No.
I'm with Rich. I believe that we should insist that the select board act on the request that was put to them by our trust. The town voted to approve this project, and I think it's important that we do everything we can to see if we can sway some select board members' minds, and if we can't, for one, I would like them on the record as refusing to go forward with this project.
Are there other thoughts on that? Well, for start, Marcia, you have your hand up.
I just want to say I did attend that select board meeting, and 2 of the 4 people who were discussing this on the select board were now saying that we need family housing, not elder housing. So you have to persuade those 2 that this is a project that is worthwhile for the community. People continue to raise the fact that there's only the preference for Concord residents on the first round and then at the opening. And that seems to be something that is, people need to get over the fact that it can't be for Concord residents only. It's just a very parochial view of what affordable housing should be.
I could just add on that, the Concord residential preference, in my view, is a red herring. These units will take, according to the developer, more than 2 years to lease up initially. And then there's regular turnover. And he has not suggested from any of his other 6 or 7 projects that he's got some long waiting list or something. So that to the extent a Concord resident wants to move in, it's not going to be an issue. So I think that's
Right.
These
And
are the same points that were raised all along. Information was provided in detail about the turnover and impact on Concord residents, and also pointing out that, you know, if your parents happen to live in Quincy and they need assisted living, you might want to have them near you. So these are the same arguments that we've heard all along.
Two comments I'd want to make. One is that every affordable housing project that this trust will ever do will have no different standards for local preference. Anything that the town of Concord might do, the local preference standards can be no greater than what this project would already carry with it. So
that's from the DHCD regulations. It's
yeah,
not arbitrary.
so if either we're in the affordable housing business with that requirement, or we're out. And if the majority, if it were a majority opinion of the select board that they don't want to do that, then they can send us all home pretty quickly, because we won't be able to comply with the state standard for all affordable housing projects for local preference. Second is, notwithstanding these issues being asked and answered in the past, the final answer has been town meeting, which said yes. Town as recently as approving the tax and increment financing agreement. So it seems to me every time the voters, the people of Concord have been asked to, for a show of hands on Christopher Heights Junction Village, they have responded in the affirmative. So I'm just perplexed at how three of those people who are on the select board can override the wishes of the voters. So, and it's an extremely disappointing development. I don't know what you do next. I don't know what next steps. I do think it would be. I do think that notwithstanding how Walter may feel about it, I think that we have an obligation. We were sitting here in official positions, have an obligation to try to bring the thing across the finish line and only be dissuaded by getting, we've asked for a policy vote from the select board. I feel strongly we still need that in order to proceed, and that we ought to go back and ask them to give us the decision that they didn't give us at the last meeting.
Lee, go ahead.
Thanks. I think it's really important for the select board and anybody else who's following this in town to recognize that this project in particular has been the focus at DHCD for before we started this. Concord has a bullseye on its back right now. They are well aware of the request, and they're going to be well aware of the denial of the request if that's what comes out. And they're also well aware and pointed out in our meeting on September 1st with some of the highest level executives at that agency that Concord has not created one single additional SHI unit in Liz 10 years. What was the number? Something like that. In fact, we're going backwards because of loss of units from I think DSS units. So when push comes to shove and we're faced with the 40B project, you can expect that there's not going to be a lot of sympathy for this town.
Well, I mentioned this before, and I'm sure Michael and Linda will try and talk me out of it. But what about the nuclear option? As I read the bylaws, we have to go to the town for acquisition of real property, but we don't have to go to the town for subsidies. So suppose we, the trust, simply votes to use our $1 million to enable them to go into DHCD for funding. And we tell the town, we understand your concerns about the reasonableness of estimates, but that's what DHCD does. Now they can fire us all, but it would create enough of a ruckus, I think, that they wouldn't be able to avoid addressing the policy issues, including 40B and the loss of the pilot fossil fuel project. So try and talk me out of it, but that's the only way I can see to go back. And, if that would persuade Walter to hang on a little longer, let's see what happens.
Thanks, Rich. Other thoughts?
When Rich raised this point last time, again, I think we could just give the money to the CHDC.
Yeah, I mean, that's what it would amount to anyway, because CHDC is the town partner in this. Yeah, I mean, I think that's what we would do, is we would vote to, allocate $1 million currently in the trust to DHCD for the construction of Junction Point.
We don't even need to be that specific. We could just give it
Yeah.
to CHDC in furtherance of the town's goals as articulated in the most recent long-range plan about affordable housing.
which emphasizes elder housing and, you know,
All
you look
time.
at, you look at the numbers for the HPP now, and what, over half the town, households in town are over 55.
And I think, if I recall correctly, Liz had a response to that in terms of the select board needing to sign off on this project for DHCD.
Well, I don't know quite what you're referring to. I think that that the town support is required in the submission to DHCD of the financing package, and there would need to be commitments made for all the funds. So the commitments could be from the trust, but the town would have to sign, and they usually send a letter as part of their support for the project in the financing to DHCD. I don't know if that's what you meant.
That's what I meant. Yeah.
And I had my hand up. I just wanted to clarify on the SHI comment. I'm sorry, it took me a little while to get that. So the SHI has, in 2013, it was at 707 units, and now it is at 713. So it's a net add of 6 units. So 17 were created and 11 were lost. So that's the movement. So there's been some movement, but of the 17 created, all of which took public subsidy and a lot of effort, 11 units were lost.
Thanks. And to be specific, when Liz, on the DHCD looking for support from the town, the town means the chief executive body of the town, the select board.
Yeah, usually the chief executive efforts officer. Yeah.
Right. Just so we're
Yeah,
clear.
I mean, I haven't looked at their submission package in general, but that's always been the way, what they've requested in the past.
Yeah, I'd be surprised if it were otherwise, because at the
Yeah.
end of the day, it's, cities and towns are all creatures of the state, and they look to certain entities as the spokesperson for the local government, and that is the select board. In
Yep.
this, so I don't think we can. I don't think we can do without the select board. However, we may want to be more specific in what we ask of them. I mean, we asked them to do 2 things for the meeting on the 19th. One was support the total of an additional $1 million from local funds for this project in order to access basically $7 million or more from additional funds from the state, and to give us direction on how much of that $1 million should come from the trust and how much the select board itself might deign to take out of the federal ARPA funds. I don't know what the appetite, I don't know that that is even a thing. I don't know that if seems to me if there's a concern of spending local funds on it, the answer would be to spend $1 million from ARPA funds. If a rational decision were made about how do you minimize use of local funds, you'd take federal ARPA funds. If, however, there's the desire to use ARPA funds for something else, because there's a lot of potential uses, and we're in competition with many other good causes. Should we perhaps just offer to just say that if the selectmen wish, we'll the $1 million from the trust fund?
Well, what if we just vote to give the $1 million to CHDC? We know ultimately it's going to be needed. Some of it's going to be needed for Assabet Bluff. Quite high.
No,
you know,
no.
sorry, go ahead.
No, see, and I couldn't be more definitive that CHDC is not a town entity. Town council has so ruled. The money we have given to DHCD for a land project was in the form of a mortgage. If you want to talk about if $1 million mortgage needs to go on this property for this purpose, yes, but I just don't see us giving this board giving the trust giving a blank check to any entity, no matter how much we support them. I don't think we can do that.
So are we down to picketing in front of town hall?
Well, is it, do we know if this, when last we met, an update on this project was going to be on the select board's agenda for October 3rd. Is that even the case? Do we know? Or does someone have to ask?
I think I think that was the expectation, but it hasn't been defined yet. And it also depends on if legal counsel has gotten back, and the chair always has discretion about when he puts that on the agenda.
So I know that Kerry is looking at that, but as Linda says, very much wants to wait for the legal opinion before taking any further discussion. So,
Can we get a
So, here's a case where dragging this out, helps the opposition, I guess. I don't see. Is there a will for town council to respond in a timely manner this week so we know it gets on the agenda? And that's out of our control.
couldn't we certainly, Linda, get it on the agenda, and then if they don't have town council opinion, the chair could not discuss it, but to not get it on.
Yeah.
And also, couldn't we ask the town manager to call, who's doing it, do you know?
The town manager said she would contact council.
I have a suggestion, and it has to do mostly with our next agenda item, which is home rule petitions. From our reauthorizing the home rule petitions, I think we figured out from our last meeting that the window of opportunity for placing articles on the January special town meeting warrant might be coming up real soon. For which case we want to get on the trust would want to get on the select board's agenda for October 3rd to at least to ask the select board to put on the warrant reauthorizing those two home rule petitions. And I do want us to have a discussion about whether we want any edits made to those. I have a couple of suggestions that we can go through when we get to it. But if we're going to submit some, and do we have any more information about when the warrant opens and closes?
After we spoke last time, I saw another draft, but I still don't have, it still hasn't been verified. But it looked like the warrant would open and close a little later than the early October dates.
Well, it can't hurt to get on the agenda for the 3rd for that. We know we want to do it.
Yeah.
If it gets postponed, at least they won't put the warrant out without discussing putting us on the agenda. And I suppose, sure, go ahead, Linda.
Yeah, when we spoke last time about this, Rich, you may have left the meeting already. The only, if we want to go ahead with pressing the Grantham issue. You know, to have two on the same agenda when we don't, you know, I think is not helpful.
And the other option that was broached to me was, would the select board be willing to endorse the project subject to town meeting approval? There were remarks by at least one of the selectmen about town meeting. And do you think there would be any chance that they could induce it, approve it conditioned upon a special town meeting vote? Yeah, me too.
Yeah, but I guess the problem is, you know, Grantham isn't gonna want to spend more money on this if they don't think it'll ever happen. So, I mean, Walter's got to be willing to hang in for that, I would think. But we know that he's already got the termination agreement to CHDC. I mean, I like that idea because I think it's a chance to show everything we know about why this is desirable. And, you know, and by that point, if we had submitted, we would know from DHCD whether they thought these numbers were fair and whether they thought this was a good deal, or we'd get some feedback anyway. So I don't know. I mean, it's better than just watching the parrot fall off the perch.
Well, the state has already reviewed this project. It's not like we don't know what the state's opinion of this is. They were prepared to grant substantial tax credits. So.
Oh no, it's just if the hang up is we don't trust their numbers, you know, the state's going to have a look at these new numbers anyway. If we make the request.
Yeah, the state's answer will be no if the request doesn't include the additional $1 million firmly in place. So that has to happen prior to the application going in. And I know we talked about if Walter were, you know, could hang on, say, for many months, maybe we'd have the time to go back to town meeting, get a vote to the extent anyone thinks it's needed, and then apply in a future round. That would, you know, under that scenario, the developer would need to be willing to wait for months. He's not even willing to wait for a week. So I think we need to do something. The higher priority, I think, is to get back to the select board for as soon as possible and ask for their up and down vote on funding for this project. I think that's the highest priority. Even higher than the, you know, refiling the, so if we have to pick one item, that's the one I would pick for us to request time on the agenda for October 3rd, for them to take a vote on the matter that they didn't vote on, that we brought them for the 19th. So.
I agree with Keith. That's the highest priority. Linda, could I ask you a question? And that is, do you think there is any opposition at all to refiling 2 home rule positions?
You know, at this point,
I'm trying to plan my future, and if Concord's no longer interested in doing affordable housing, I would sure like to know that sooner rather than later.
Yeah.
Because I'm not feeling warm and fuzzy about spending devoting further efforts to it.
I asked that question because if there isn't any opposition, and I haven't heard any, in doing this, when I was on the select board, a simple letter from some part of the town structure to the select board requesting that something be put on the town warrant like this, but wouldn't even require having it as an agenda item. Town would, the selectmen would just file these warrants. So I'm with Keith. Let's get this in front of the select board and force the issue. I mean, we really must do this. The town has voted to approve this project. It's critical to the long run success of our affordable housing efforts in the town. And to just not force the issue, I think is not the responsible thing to do.
I agree.
So, where's it going to come from, or does it need to come from two different places? Does it need to come from a request from me, select board to select board chair, to get an item on the agenda, as well as come from you?
We can take a vote now, here and now, requesting that the select board put us on the agenda for October 3rd. I would hope and expect that CHDC will do the same tomorrow morning at its meeting, because I don't think we can or should come alone.
Well, if we can get it on the agenda, we can certainly be trying to turn out the groups we've been talking about.
So I think I'd like to see not only the affordable housing representation at the select board meeting, which is easy for us to do, but get the climate people there. And I would even ask Elise Woodward, who is the co-chair of the long range plan that was just put into effect, to if she would come and reiterate the importance of this project and our efforts in affordable housing to the select board. I don't know.
I think we ought to have somebody from Elder Affairs as well. If nothing else, I would guess that the majority of the electorate in the town of Concord is over 55.
Let's not leave out the open space folks who worked so hard on the planning for
Oh,
that
yeah,
part of
and
the property.
the West Concord open space folks too. I mean, I think you could have a pretty impressive lineup in which you say, we get all those people to say what we're talking about. We've got some version of the slides we started with. And, somebody says, why are you voting this project down? I guess my only concern is if there's no developer, there's no there. So I don't know. But I guess I'm with Mike. I think there has to be a vote on record. We decided we didn't want to do Junction Village, which of course will make the 40B even easier.
And assuming we go ahead with the request for the agenda item, I think the slides that you prepared, Rich, should be part of what's in this packet so that it can't, at least something like that can't be preempted again. It's already in the packet.
That's
For everyone,
very important.
for everyone to see.
Okay. No, I agree.
Yeah,
We should, I think, as part of our motion, I think we should have as part of our request of the select board that we be allowed to make a presentation on behalf of this project. That was Linda tried to get that done at the last meeting, but was just cut off essentially. But I think we should insist that we be allowed to make a presentation. And I wonder if our presentation can in fact include remarks from the various constituencies that we've talked about.
Yep.
So, I mean, for example, the last slide added to Rich's slide deck that said, and these 3-4 people representing various parts of the town would like to comment on this project. And then we can have their names and whatever.
Okay.
And I'd ask Linda, is it more effective for the request simply to come from a member of the select board? Or is it better that it come from this committee?
You know, to tell you at this point, I clearly have been labeled, and I think I mentioned this at the last meeting. We already know how you're going to vote. I've been labeled. We already know how you're going to vote. So
Yeah.
in a dismissive way. So, you know, maybe it's better it comes from here. But I think it's, I characteristically also, at least in the past, have requested from the chair, and he's been responsive when I've asked to get an item on the agenda.
He has to recuse himself from this item.
Yeah, but that he still is setting up the agenda.
It doesn't
Okay, he'll put it
recuse
on the
itself from
agenda and then,
Instructing the meeting, yeah. Absolutely.
yeah, okay. Well, is there a motion to request that we ask the select board to put this matter on their October 3rd agenda and allow us to allow a presentation to be made on it?
So moved.
Second,
Motion by Rich, second by,
no, Mike made the motion.
Lee
oh,
has
I
to-
beg your pardon. Motion by Mike, second by Rich.
Keith,
That's what happens when I don't look up at the screen. Yeah, Lee?
just a suggestion, perhaps include a time limit on the presentation. So at least you've set expectations about how much time you want, rather than necessarily just let them dictate that.
Yeah, is it reasonable for us to request half an hour of their agenda time?
I
Yeah.
don't think that'll fly too much. Yeah.
Okay,
And
so
that's-
I was more, I'm sorry, I was more suggesting just that for the present, just a time limit on the presentation. And then, the discussion.
yeah,
goes where it
5-minute
goes, but
presentation for a 5-minute presentation.
Something like that.
Yeah.
I could do that. I could do those slides in 5 minutes.
Okay, and allow a 5-minute presentation to be made. How about that? We'll put that in the motion. And does that sound reasonable?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, so we're asked that that the Board of Selectmen,
To include a 5-minute
yeah,
presentation.
to include a 5-minute presentation to be made. Okay. Motion and second. Is there further discussion? All right, we'll take a roll call vote. Linda,
Aye.
Mike,
Aye.
Rich,
Aye.
and Keith, aye. All right, so thank you for that.
Could I suggest, Keith, that we quickly figure out who's going to approach each group? I mean, who's going to go to Alice? Who's going to go to Mothers Out Front? Who's going to go to Elder Affairs, et cetera, that kind of, and long range plans, so that, I guess we've got to tell people we don't know that it's on the agenda, but if we can get it on, this is your last chance to, keep us from killing it.
Mhm.
There's obviously a danger it Grantham walks away anyway. But I want this thing voted on the merits, not on whether they like Grantham. So I volunteer to reach out to, through my board members, to mothers, and I will. It's a little difficult, but I'll try and be there myself, and I'm sure I'll have several of my board members.
I'm happy to reach out to Alice. I've been keeping her informed. And I can also reach out to Elise Woodward, who is the co-chair of the Long Range Plan.
How about Elder Affairs? I don't know anybody there, although I can maybe try through a couple of my board members.
Yeah, had the Council on Aging ever taken a position on this project?
No, but you know,
Not that
some
I
of that
recall.
I think has to do with who's been approached or not. So they, in the past, have had a representative to, at least to CHA. Because that's the only thing they knew, I think, in
Yeah.
terms of relationship.
How about League of Women Voters?
Oh, yeah, no, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm sure they'll do
Stefan,
it.
I can reach out to Stefan.
yeah, good.
Okay,
So Ginger Corliss would be, I guess, the person to reach out to at Council on Aging.
I
Anybody
don't
know?
know her.
Mike, did you say you would?
No, I said I don't know her well enough to
Yeah.
reach out to her. Lois does her hand up.
There's also the Friends of the Elders. It used to be like the Friends of the Council on Aging, but they've opened up to a larger thing, and I don't know the proper name and the proper, thing, but it's separate. They're supportive of the Council on Aging, but it's not the Council on Aging. They're separate. And very supportive to elders.
Yeah, I think, good point, Lois. I think it's Concord Friends of the Aging, and they're a separate entity, but Ginger Corliss would be able to give you that information.
And I think that's a group. I just want to say, well, I've got my attention, is when you gals present, it's very hard to discern whether you're saying C as in Concord Housing Development Corporation or D as in Department of Housing and Community Development. It's very difficult to hear the difference. And I think a lot of people don't understand the power that the Department of Housing and Community Development has in terms of funding. I'm Lois Suarez, 34 Everett Street, apartment 10B. I live in Concord Public Housing, and I've lived here for 18 years in different parts of the development. And I follow the Concord Housing Authority meetings and actions closely. So just to tell you who I am. And a lot of you know who I am.
thanks so much. You're one of our regular supporters, Lois.
Well,
Thanks.
I don't always go along with everything you say, but I want to know about it. And then in the process, I've learned, and sometimes you've convinced me that it's the right thing to do. And my first reaction is a little bit, I don't think so. So understanding is a lot of it. And was it Lee that spoke first this morning? He said that so clearly this morning, and I heard it in a way that I have not heard it before, succinct and clear. And I've followed most of your meetings on this, and just a feedback. And when you go to the select board, please be really, really careful. Having someone say that seniors can, have their air conditioning units, and if you want the sustainability people to be along with you, you need to get some of that straight. I lug in and out, or get somebody to lug in and out my air conditioning unit. And you go around the back here, you will see 100%, as far as I know, it's 100% air conditioning units for senior housing. I mean, having somebody say something like that is such a negative. And those small things make big differences in people's minds. I just, please, I hope you get what you need, but please be careful.
Thanks so much, Lois.
Well, I'm willing to write Pamela Dritt and say, this is crucial to going forward with a fossil-free Concord. Please, support us. Don't bring up the possibility, as those I've suggested. If we can get this going, maybe we can look at getting solar panels on the roof, but we can't play with the design anymore. That's
No.
how.
Just on the fossil fuel piece, it's not clear yet because the regulations haven't come out as to whether, in fact, Concord would be eligible if we're below 10%. There's seemingly a difference of opinion on that so far. So,
Well, it strikes me reading the language, the intent is pretty clear, that you can't get your, you got to do your share for affordable housing before we'll let you play with this. And I mean, I think that's appropriate,
Yeah.
It's an environmental justice thing.
Yeah, I've got some edits to Rich's slides, just minor stuff, but rather than saying we would lose our opportunity, we'll need to say we may lose the opportunity, depending upon what the final regulations say, which we don't know. But I agree with the sentiment from Rich that the state's looking for the 10 communities that the statute allows to have a fossil fuel-free demonstration project. Now that Boston, and for all we know, other larger communities may be interested in getting on that list of 10, I think DOER is going to be under tremendous pressure to view any of the 10 as being worthy of staying on the list. And if Concord starts out on the list and falls below, I don't think anyone should be, making any future plans about what happens after the regulations come out. And so we should work very hard Concord should be working very hard to convince and show the state that we make a good partner. And as has been said, they haven't seen anything lately from Concord in affordable housing, and we'd like to change it. So
I'm going to have to excuse myself for another meeting at 11.
okay. Thanks so much for being
As
here.
am I.
Okay.
And I
Thank
just
you.
take us back, we talked about who was contacting whom, but I don't know if there was a resolution about the Council on Aging.
I will write, even though I don't know her, I will write Ginger Quarles, but I'll also go to the older members of my board. Lois, do you know somebody on the Council on Aging?
Not any more than you do. I mean,
Okay,
I don't know. It's basically, it's we're friends of the friends. I don't know the right name. Linda knew the right name. The people who did the community room.
Concord Friends of Aging, I believe it is.
Friends of Age. That sounds about right.
Okay, so I will, soon as we're done with this meeting, I'll put in a request to the chair, to the chair of the select board, and copy Linda and Carrie on the asking for time on the select board's October 3rd agenda. Do we just want to focus on that for October 3rd? Sensing that'll be enough, and if we need to spend time on the home rule petitions, that we ought to take that up at a future time.
Yep.
That's what I'm hearing. And I do have some suggestions on the home rule petition, which I will send out in written form for our next agenda. So you have a chance to look at that in advance.
Are there substantive changes, Keith?
Just very, very minor ones. In particular, what I was focusing on was to let's see, no, I think sorry for this. I'm actually working on it for the last hour. So I'd like to we want to specifically reference the Concord Municipal Affordable Housing Trust. It doesn't use the term municipal, and since we exist now and have a name, I think we could be referred to throughout as the name that's been given us. I think we ought to provide for the initial acceptance at an annual or special town meeting. I think we discussed that once before. If the legislature were ever to pass this thing and we had to wait a year for another annual town meeting, that would be unfortunate. And by the way, from looking at the statewide legislation, if that were to pass, it makes no distinction about an annual or special town meeting. The matter could go to either. So I don't want us, if we were so lucky as to have either of our home rule petitions passed, I think that would be helpful. Another one is that I would like us to have a substantive discussion about whether we wanted to, how we felt about one of these acts defining housing at 120% of AMI and the other having no definition. And I think we had to have a substantive discussion about that.
No, I agree.
I agree. I think that's important.
Yeah,
think
and the state language says up to 175. And I think we really need to have
We need to go that hard.
we have to have a discussion that helps us decide what that is. So those are some of the things that we're hoping to raise. And I could put those in writing and we could discuss them at a future meeting.
So
Okay.
the question is, who's going to take our 5 minutes? Lee, Keith, Mike, because he's a former select board member? I'm just wondering.
I'd love to have a tag team, lest only one voice be allowed to be heard during the 5 minutes. I had to sort of.
Well, yeah, the problem with that is the handoff. I mean, I'd rather one person present it and we can all chime in if there is debate, but I mean, I defer to others, but my preference would be one person presenting quickly and hopefully people looking at those slides.
Yeah. I mean, any one of you, I think, would be a good representative, but given some of the recent activity here, Mike, are you willing to do this? Because you can speak to the former town vote in a way that has some real credibility.
I'm afraid I would lose my temper.
I'd be okay with that.
Be better than I would be.
Yeah, I'd be happy to do it. I'm not happy.
I think that's a great suggestion. Mike is the continuity department. Mike knows exactly what the agreements say because he was there. And I think it carries a lot of weight to say someone who was on the front lines and who has full appreciation for what we're dealing with is our spokesperson. I think that would be great. And
Who's gonna update the deck?
I'll work with, I'll send some edits to Rich. And anyone else has anything, send them to Rich. as well. There were not many. I mean, I want to just to,
One of my board members caught one that my English teacher wife would have caught, which is I had loose instead of lose, but
yes, right,
we'll get that one.
right. Very good. So I'll send those to Rich right away after the meeting.
Yeah, and I'll try and make it look a little better too.
Okay.
I don't, this is not anything I'm really particularly urging, but would we want to schedule a meeting of ours for Friday so that we can all review the deck, because we can't do it offline and serially throw this stuff around the horn. So even if Keith gives stuff to you and then you give stuff to me, I think we run the risk of violating the open meeting law. So I'd suggest that we have if we could put a meeting together sometime Friday so that we could all review the deck and make sure everybody's on the same page and do it.
And would Friday morning allow it to be included in the select board's packet? Or is there an earlier deadline?
Well, here's my suggestion for that. What I would suggest is you send Keith, you send whatever it is you've got to Rich. And Rich, you buff it up, whatever you want to do, and send it back to Keith. Keith, send it to the select board. But then we can still meet on Friday and we can review it. And if there's any changes to be made, we can change it and submit an amended deck to the select board.
Right, and I also think that.
And excuse me, yeah,
Sorry, go.
and minimally, you'll be able to share it, the presentation, or give it to the person who's putting it up on the screen, even if it doesn't make the packet with the amended version. Yeah, okay.
But the amendments, whatever they are not going to be giants, you know.
Yeah.
And I would hope on Friday, we'll know who's going to, the individuals we've been talking about, who is lined up to, say something if we get the chance for them to do so.
Yeah.
Having said that, I'm wondering if there's a way for Lee then to be one of the first speakers, or somehow wrapped into so that he has a chance to speak. Not that the other, groups wouldn't be important to all stand up if they have the opportunity, but I'm just trying to anticipate what if
Well, let me
not
ask,
has a time limit set by, yeah.
I understand, Linda, but if we said we're going to do 5 minutes at the end of our 5-minute presentation, could we now say, and now we'd like to hear from the following 5 people? I mean, that'll certainly take us well beyond.
Yeah, that's why that's why I singled out Lee as opposed to the whole group, because you're right, you can't very well do that.
I'll do whatever makes the most sense. They've heard from me. They know pretty well what CHDC's position is, at least as of our last meeting. Maybe it would be more impactful if they heard from someone new. And my other idea is perhaps the deck should include maybe a list of confirmed supporters or groups, in case they're not all allowed to speak.
So in contacting people, should we give them the presentation as amended with Keith's comments and say, are you willing to be identified as a supporter?
Well, I can tell you that the League of Women Voters will be a no, only not because they don't support it, but they would need to convene and vote
Yeah.
to support it. So,
But Stefan might say something on it, on behalf of the housing committee or whatever.
still, I'm talking here now about the logistical issues. We passed a motion to ask the select board for 5 minutes, so I can talk fast and get a lot of stuff in 5 minutes. I understand that. But we have this other list of people that we would like to speak on behalf of the project. And when I'm finished with my presentation, we have no guarantee that the acting chair, whoever that turns out to be, will then call on anybody else, but instead will go back to the select board for their deliberation. So how do we,
Well, I think then I think the answer is one more slide, just with a list of, any group that will confirm support. You've got the Housing Foundation, hopefully the Long Range Planning Committee, maybe we can get somebody
the
from them.
committee doesn't exist anymore. All we would be able to do is ask one of the co-chairs if she would speak to the importance of Concord's affordable housing goals as articulated in the Long Range Plan. And the same with the climate people. I don't know if Alice is part of a committee or not. I think it was just a group that put together that home rule petition. Wasn't that correct, Linda?
I think that's right. Yeah, I think that's right.
It was a committee. I think it was just a group of citizens who put together that home rule petition.
Yeah. Yeah, and it would be ideal if we could list, endorsements from various groups, but we're not there and we won't be there by the end of the week. And I think it's going to be tricky to put individuals' names up there in isolation. Yeah.
I mean, all I think we can do is say at the end of the presentation that there are a number of people here representing various parts of the town who would also like to speak to this matter. And our hope is that the select board, before they reach a final determination, would allow these people to talk. I think that's probably about, and the select board usually, they're usually been pretty good about having people participate.
I just thought of something. Is everyone aware that Carrie LaFleur sent out to each select board members that Grantham had pulled out? But she also indicated in that same correspondence that she was aware that there may be opportunities or some events afoot to call Grantham back to reconsider. So that was in the email that the select board members received.
Would
Just
that be the reason, would that be used as a reason for not obtaining a town council opinion?
No. Well, could it be? Yeah, I suppose, but I think this request still has to go in from us.
Lee, could we get some kind of a statement from Walter that if in fact the select board would reconsider this and vote to approve it, that he would continue on with the project? I don't think we want him at the meeting. His head will explode. We don't want.
He does not want to go to the meeting. I don't think he will provide that kind of affirmative statement at this point. I think
Well,
our best chance of changing his mind would be to show significant affirmative support for the project by the select board at that or a future meeting.
But the select board with that knowledge, speaking as a former selectman, with the knowledge that the developer has withdrawn from the project, I would say then there's no reason for the select board to take this matter up again. I mean,
That's a concern of mine.
as much as I would want to,
Yeah, well, he all but withdrew in front of them and on the 19th, and that didn't prevent a motion from the select board to essentially say, you can't do that. Which I still think is a thing. I think that's an issue. If I were the CHDC, I would not want to be entering into a termination agreement with the developer until I knew how the select board was going to view that. They may view it as not being a good thing for the CHDC to do. So I think Lee's group should be informed by whatever the town council opinion is.
Okay. So
Okay, so.
I agree with that, just for the record.
onward and forward.
Yeah, are we able to meet on, is there a time we can meet on Friday?
Earlier the better.
Same here.
How's 8 AM?
That's good.
Fine.
Fine with
All
me.
right. Next meeting will be at Friday, September 30th at 8 AM on Zoom. Okay, I think that's as much as we can do today. Is there any public comment?
Just say thank you. And they, on the select board meeting, they usually ask for public comment. So any of the people you have lined up, if they come as public comment with, their background as whatever, like I said, I'm Lois Suarez, I live wherever. And sometimes that has some credibility, or you've followed something. And the select board is usually, they're not 100%, but they're about 99.9 on public comment. So I'd line up some people for public comment. And I need to say, unfortunately, Monday night, I have a conflict. I will not more than likely be able to Zoom in for, for select board, maybe the beginning, but I have at 7 o'clock, I have a conflict in my own
Well,
meeting.
I must chime in, Lois, it's not the public comment portion of the select board meeting, because that usually comes at the end when they have finished deliberations. But we need, and there's no requirement for the select board to ask for public comment on a particular issue before them. So
Yeah,
it's-
I understand that, but they usually do.
they usually do unless they don't want to.
Yeah, I'm you got that right.
Yeah.
But I said, whatever. And anyway, best wishes for good luck on a good outcome
Keith,
for
Keith,
all of
I mean,
us.
Keith, I wonder, we had that motion that we prepared. We indicated in that motion that we would make a 5-minute presentation. Would it be, asking Linda, I guess, Linda, would it be helpful if that motion was amended to also request that certain members of the public also be allowed to comment on this before the select board deliberates?
I think so, given, yeah,
Would it do harm?
no, because I think that they can, yeah, not acknowledge it, that part of it, if they don't want to. Keith, can you read that?
For 5 minutes, so our request would be for a 5-minute presentation and for the select board to allow for public comment. And we were concerned that half an hour was a lot to ask for. Too much to ask for. But
Well, I mean, the select board knows that this is an important matter for the town. I think we should include that in the motion, because although of course it opens it up then to public comments from people who are opposed to them.
Well, those were the ones, that's all we heard, really,
Yeah.
on the big screen.
So would an amendment to that motion be in order?
I think we ought to stand up for ourselves. We didn't get to speak last time. I think it's more likely to be put on the agenda if we ask for a 5-minute presentation, and I think a public board facing a room full of people, if it were to be that, does so and not allows them to speak, does so at their own peril. And that's
I agree. with
I don't think
that.
it's for us to teach them that lesson. I think that we're just looking to be able to make our point and to ask them to take a vote.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Okay, so I think we're I think we're ready to adjourn.
Do we need to amend the motion, Keith?
No,
I don't think we voted.
We didn't, and
No, I think-
I
I'd
agree
say-
with Keith. They would not take public comment at their own peril. I mean.
yeah, we don't need to tell them that. They all know, so. Okay, is there anything further that we can?
You didn't vote on what you've been talking about, the agenda request.
Or did we not? I thought I had a, I thought I had a 4-0 vote on,
I think you do.
yeah, I do. I had a vote of 4-0 on the requesting the October 3rd select board agenda. So I think we're all set. And by agreement, our next meeting will be this Friday, September 30 at 8 a.m. on Zoom.
Right.
Okay. And we'll be, I know I'm gonna log on to Lee's meeting tomorrow morning is at 8. So I appreciate the all the work that the CHDC has done on this project. So.
So this meeting we have to post this meeting by tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock, right?
Yes, right. I'm gonna reach out to Chris Carmody immediately after this meeting.
And
For my
Is
Zoom
there any
credentials.
chance that the slide deck would be completed to be able to be added to the agenda when it's posted?
I don't see why not. I mean, I can turn it around today if Keith sends me his comments. And the only thing I've been thinking of adding is a bullet that says THCD experts will, validate cost estimates or something like that.
And I think we could underscore it in the bullet point about a local preference for this, that expand that it has the same local preference as every other affordable housing project that Concord will ever be allowed to do. So it's no different.
Mhm.
Okay, right. I'll
The
work on.
maximum percentage permitted by state law and regulation by DHCD.
I think it's important to get the state in there so it doesn't sound like some nasty thing.
Or just say the state, maximum preference.
Yep.
Permissible by the state.
The local preference is the maximum permitted by the state.
I got that. I'll put it in, Keith. when you
Right,
send it.
and that's a straight for any affordable housing project, for any or every or all or something. Okay, then let's have, thank you very much for being here today. Let's have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second,
Okay. There sounds like a lot of hesitation around whether to.
we're having so much fun, Keith.
Well, we are, and so let's have the vote on the motion to adjourn. Linda,
I thank you, everyone. Rich, please thank Moira for standing up and making her public comment.
Thank you, I will. And
Mike.
Lee, thank you for what a godforsaken job you have, but I appreciate what you're doing.
Yeah.
Here,
Thank you, and we all appreciate your support and hard work on this as well. So keep fighting.
thanks. So Linda's in favor, Mike,
Aye.
Rich,
I
and Keith, aye. So We are adjourned at 11:27 a.m. and it's on Friday at 8.
Go on, everyone.
Thank you. Thanks so much.
Thank you, everyone.